So we got Ben and Jack with us right at the moment. How's things going with you, Ben?
I am dead.
So you're 3-2 now.
I'm 3-2. In all fairness, like the two opponents I've played today, the two opponents who have beaten me, the first one played very well. He outgrinded me, and my second defeat came from him Apostle's Blessing my spell skite, giving it protection from green, so he could get all his pump spells off.
So you're playing Kiki Pod against Infect here, yeah?
Playing Kiki Pod against Infect, and I was effectively punished for playing too conservatively. But I think hindsight's a wonderful thing, and whether it was a mistake or not, I don't actually know. So
now, Jack, I think you're in the same boat here, by all accounts.
Yeah. It's probably my own fault, but yeah, I just lost to red-green aggro, like the modern equivalent.
With your egg stack.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. I won game 1 really easily, and then game 2 he had 3 lightning bolts, which works. Then game 3 I had a turn 0 ley line, and a lotus bloom, and an egg, and the holy day, and an echoing truth, and lost. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how. There has to be something I've done wrong there to lose that game of Magic, because that's literally everything I could ask for, and I even had a face reward in hand. I mean, if it was a second well, admittedly, if the face reward was a second sunrise, I'd won on the spot, because I'd had to tap my lands, but I had obviously the Lotus Bloom in play, and 3 eggs. But aside from that, I don't know how I lost that. I'm still sitting there racking my brains, to be honest. Yeah.
Now, so what's the general idea with you two with this modern format then? I mean, compare it to other formats. How do you think, how big of a, what would you say, reward you get from testing?
I've been pretty much punished for not testing at all. This wasn't like standard where I could turn up with a deck and I knew like 6 or 7 deck lists and that was fine. Yes, thank you, Wags. But you know, modern, you've got to treat modern with the same respect as you treat legacy. Like, you won't know every single deck list. You know, as Matt Light said, if you look at every daily deck list, you know, you'll know what's there. But for all of that, there's still going to be the odd deck. It could be anything. Like Boggles has been doing terribly. It's currently X and O. Matt's playing it in the X and O bracket. So you just can't turn up.
There's a lot of diversity, and like you say, it punishes you if you haven't got the knowledge of like going to a Lexi event, for example. So yeah, it's a toughie, but I think because it's so vast, like we were saying before, it feels like you just have to put all your time and your effort into, say, 4 or 5 decks. You want to know about the rest, but it's almost impossible in terms of time constraints to test against absolutely every single deck in the format, because it's vast like Legacy. Unless you've got masses and masses of time, it's really hard. But yeah.
Now, are we gonna be playing the day out for the sake of science and winning a few boosters here?
I won't know. I've got Verona next week, so I'm going to go into standard mode. I mean, the rest of this, like the next month and a half, I think, is basically just standard tournaments for myself. So this was like, I think this modern tournament is probably the last modern tournament I'm going to play for a while. So it was kind of like top 8 / win, or like scrub out and then go into standard for me today. So.
And how about yourself then, Ben?
I've dropped out, but I'm going to go into coverage mode. So I'm going to look around the top tables, look at the feature match, see what's available, because I love watching live Magic.
Will you be playing any more modern this season?
No, I just don't have the money, and I just don't have the time. That's like, I didn't choose not to prepare. I could not prepare. So for me, modern's over. It was my annual modern tournament by the looks of things.
So, interviews might be a little bit quieter over the next few rounds if you're not keeping playing here. So the big question we always ask people when they drop out of a Magic tournament is, were you happy with your deck choice?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said in the first interview, I lost the first round by playing like an idiot, effectively. Well, it's always hard. It's like I say, hindsight's a beautiful thing. I'm pretty sure I could have won off those extra few draw spells, but I don't know that. And that one, I'm going to have to go and sit down and assess that one while my friend's still playing, because I'm not entirely sure how I lost that game. But there's definitely something I've done wrong there. But yeah, it's just going to be a case of assessing the day. But I think it was the right choice.
Same question to you, Ben.
Yeah, it was. It was the right deck for the right situation that I was in that I just don't have time. I need something with all the answers. I don't have enough time to test, and Kiki Pod is that deck.
So if you were available to do all the testing, would there be a different deck you would consider playing? I mean, what would you be doing if you weren't doing eggs?
It's like Ben and Wags have said, they just kind of made a judgment on what they think because they haven't had time to test and stuff. If I had the time to test, where the format's at currently, I hate to say this, but I think Matt's right about his deck choice is probably Stellar Fair today. Whether it's going to be a good choice for the next modern tournament or if there's one within a couple of weeks remains to be seen. But yeah, the Blue White Sphinx's deck's really good, but as soon as a deck like that gets good, it kind of
defeats itself almost.
Oh yeah, scumbag.
Guess what I just beat?
Boggles.
Yeah, baby.
So Matt Light's joining us now, and he's gonna.
Whoa! You gotta share that.
And he's going to tell us.
Would you like the donut then?
Yes,
you can have the whole donut.
Yes, please.
I don't need it because I'm getting sustenance from all my victories.
So Matt, tell us about your round.
I played against the Hexproof Auras deck, or as we call it, the Slippery Bogle deck, which is, I'm pretty sure, is a really bad matchup for me because their cards, obviously my deck's full of spot removal and their deck's full of Hexproof guys. So a lot of my cards don't interact with them in the way I want them to. So the great thing about my deck is that my removal doubles up as a way to win the game at the end. And when it's just a way to win the game, it's actually a lot of dead cards early. Fortunately, she mulliganed to 6 in game 1 and made a turn 1 Hexproof and a turn 2 Ethereal Armor. And then after that, I just man-leaked the next couple of spells. Because she'd made a turn 2 Dryad Arbor, I managed to Wrath for quite a lot of value on turn 4 or 5. And after that, it was just quite trivial that she couldn't recover because I then had all my Snapcasters then become Wrath of Gods, Supreme Verdicts. And I've also got Sphinx's Revelations, so she poked me a little bit throughout the game. I Wrathed a couple of times, tried to trade Colonnades, which she pathed a lot. And then I just fired off a huge Revelation for about 7 or 8. Game 2, she mulliganed to 6 and kept, in her own words, quite a loose keep, which was a turn 1 Dryad Arbor sort of game, which I obviously had the Lightning Bolt for. And then from there, the game went in exactly the same way. She tried to assemble some creatures. I Wrathed a couple of times, and then I fired off a Revelation for 5, then a Revelation for 9 or 8, and just burnt her out from something like 24, 25. So it's interesting. I mean, I don't really have that much sideboard. I have a Spell Skype, but she just immediately pathed it. So
what does the Bogle deck have to do to beat your deck in this matchup?
It just needs to resolve a Totem Armor. If it resolves a guy, any other enchantment and a Totem Armor, I'm just too far behind to ever win the game. I mean, that's not necessarily true, because there's sort of lines I can have that involve Cryptic commanding the Totem Armor and then untapping and wrathing. But if the opponent gets, the Bogle player gets sort of a good enchantment, it's like an Ethereal Armor and or a Rancor or a Daybreak Coronet, something like that, as well as a Totem Armor, I'm just going to really struggle, because I start having to play a really, really difficult game whereby I have to have very specific cards. When I have to have multiple specific cards to deal with their plan A, you're always going to struggle in that situation. So, Totem Armor, basically.
So, Jack and both Ben was telling us both about how they've got a lot of standard coming up, certainly in Jack's 5. So, we doing any Grand Prix?
I'm going to Utrecht next month. I could be persuaded to go to Verona's standard, isn't it? If anyone were to tell me there were cheap flights and wanted me to go with them and asked me nicely to go with them because they wanted me to go with them to Verona.
Matt Light, would you like to come to Verona with us?
Yeah, I would. I'll look into flights and stuff.
Our flights.
Good that you picked that up. Subtly.
I'll make sure.
Just leave me some flight details.
Yeah, that's no problem at all.
And
well,
we're in sync.
To be honest, we.
In fact, I did have to ask.
If you don't,
it was subtle.
The thing is, if you don't come though, how are you ever going to get better, Matt? So you need to go.
It's true. I'm also going to go to Bazaar of Moxon, the big sort of legacy festival event, in a couple of months, because it seems like that's just hemorrhages value for the players that go.
EV is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the flights are £60 as well, so be rude not to.
Okay, so we got 3 rounds left. You need to win one of the next 2. ID the last one.
Yeah, hopefully.
So, is there a deck you don't want to see, or you're just happy with everything?
I don't want to sound really like hubrisy and awful, but I'm not worried about playing against any deck. I'd be worried about playing against the Bogle deck again, but I think that's very unlikely at this point in the tournament because I don't think many people are playing. I wouldn't be surprised if she's one of 1, maybe 2 players who are on the deck.
I haven't seen anyone else play it, and although I hate boosting egos, I'm going to agree with Matt here. His deck looks incredibly powerful and incredibly well suited for the room. If I had, Jack's already said this, I'm saying it as well, with some concession. If I had the time to prepare, I would have played Raka today.
I was saying before you came in the room, I think you, like you said, you picked the perfect deck for today. Whether that's to be seen in another tournament, but yeah.
Like if you actually had a chance to watch any of my games, I mean, it's just so unbelievable. Like the fact that the games aren't feeling very close.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times where I think that maybe my opponent can win. There's been one time where I looked like I was close to losing a game, which was my opponent was on pod. It was Mark McGovern, so a good player.
Okay.
And his board was something like 3 lands, possibly 4, 3 Wall of Roots, a Restoration Angel, and a Birthing Pod.
Okay.
So as anyone that knows the pod deck knows, he can kill me from there. He can just kill me. But the thing is, I had 5-6 mana open.
Okay.
So he just didn't go for it because you can't just go for it into all that mana when.
How many lands did you have? Cards in hand?
6.
Yeah,
Like I've not cast a single removal spell all game.
Yeah,
so he doesn't go for it, which is obviously right. And then end of turn I bust out a Revelation for 2 or 3, and I didn't have anything. So if he'd gone for it, I would have died. But the nature of the deck means people can't just go for it. So then I drew into the things I needed and won from there quite easily.
You did that at the end of his turn, right?
The Revelation. Yeah.
One thing I think one matchup that could be dodgy. What about this new Grixis Delver that Zach Hill and that are going on about?
I'm pretty sure you just batter it.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean they're not playing Liliana, are they? Yeah. So like the only.
And that's the only card you care about.
Yeah,
They are playing
they are.
playing Liliana. Yeah.
I'm not sure they are.
In the sideboard they are.
Oh, okay, sure. They're playing 1, right?
No, well.
The original
I
list
don't
played
know
1.
if their list is, but I've seen a list crop up.
Sorry. Yeah, it's somewhere between 1 and maybe 3. The thing is, I don't think that their guys are so bad against Electrolyze.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And like Electrolyze and that's the sort of matchup where your Batterskull can really shine as well. I've got one of Batterskull. I'm pretty sure it's just garbage though. Like every time I've drawn it, I've just been like, well, it's for the people that don't have any patience.
Okay.
Like every time I've cast it, I've been like, I could win in like 10 turns. But like if I get this window to open to make Batterskull, but a lot of the time you just don't want to. You never have less than 4 cards in hand ever with the deck.
The only reason why I said that deck was it's a typical blue-black style strategy, and generally they beat the blue-white strategies. I know your deck's free colour, but
the thing is it's the red that really gets you there because you've got the lightning bolts, the helixes, and the electrolyzers.
Yeah.
You've got I'm probably playing as much removal as they are guys, like non-Deathrite Shaman guys.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they're actually like against that deck. Lightning bolt says red destroy target creature.
Yeah, it's effectively a reb, isn't it, in Legacy? Yeah.
And because of that, and like their thoughts, they might get. I think their really good draws can beat me if my draw is really bad.
Like land heavy or something.
Yeah, like if they get like the right mix of Thoughtseize Inquisition and a flip Delver and a Bob.
Yeah.
But like
that's the same with any matchup though. Any draw can beat.
I think that it's because their draws are a bit disruptive. So like it makes your bad draws even worse. It's like Merfolk. It's like like the Merfolk decks and like the Zoo decks and that sort of thing that just punish you if you
Stumble.
falter. Yeah, and so yeah, I think that deck can beat me, but it's unlikely. The other thing is I don't think anyone in this room will have been able to put enough time into being good enough with it.
No,
so I think that
it's a very recent deck, isn't it?
yeah, it's very recent and it's obviously very complicated. So.
Yeah.
So you'll be pleased to know we'll actually be doing some table coverage of your next couple of games. So if this...
Is that your way of employing me and Jack now that we've scrubbed out?
Oh, we don't care about you. You're both dead. You're both dead and you've dropped, so... But, so what we kind of want from you from this point in is, just as you're playing and crushing people, hopefully, We might pick you up afterwards and actually get you to do a little bit of sort of commentary on the game afterwards at some later point, so we can talk about all the interesting things. But in your opinion, is your deck just a really interesting deck to play? Or is it boring?
I think I think that someone who has played a lot less Magic than me would find it very interesting, but because I've got well-developed shortcuts, so I know where the game's going and what I want my cards to be doing, I don't actually have to make a lot of decisions that would otherwise have to be made. It's interesting because of the way it interacts with the format. I mean, it's a very good example of the control deck that is just perfect, like for the day. And everyone always talks about building that control deck and obviously imagines it, but I feel like I've got that today. I mean, the things I've beaten are like the Bogle deck, a blue-white mirror, like a Kiki pod deck, some Tron decks. So like I'm beating a range of decks. It's not like I'm getting lucky with matchups. And I think that's a very interesting thing, because I think you get lots of times where people get lucky with their matchups and do well in the tournament.
It's like the Tron players who turn up hoping just to get junned. Basically, they're like, all I want is. They just want to resolve a Wormcoil or a Karn and hope that's enough. And when they get the decks that can interact with that, they're like, well, it's a bit awkward.
So, last question. When you're actually playing Magic today, and you're making decisions, do you have that water bottle in your hand and you're just using it to point at the cards?
I have cards in my hand to do that, but I do like having this to fiddle with.
It's a blanket, isn't it, Matt? It's a blanket.
A little bit.
It's good luck charm for the day. So
It's like a teddy bear. It's going to take it with him to bed tonight.
The problem is, if I don't keep hold of it, I'll leave it on a table, at which point I won't have a bottle to keep filling up with water, and I'll not be hiding.
So we need to give you a name for your bottle at some point.
Yeah, sure.
Hugh. Hugh, maybe?
Hubris.
Hugh.
I am done.
Did you? Oh, little setup. Little setup.
Jewish bottle.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So hopefully we'll be following through Matt through to his top 8 victories.
Basically happened.
Just one more round.
It's basically happened, hasn't it? Really, it's like.